Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, Solar Eclipse Monday. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know whether it is either way, but Todd Leary joins us from myjumpshot.com. Don't forget, if you or anyone you know is playing basketball, if it doesn't matter if it's elementary, junior high, high school, college, or rec league, if you need to improve your jump shot, and I'm assuming that you do, you need myjumpshot.com and Todd Leary to take care of that. He's been working with some very, very high-profile people already, and definitely one of the best shooters Indiana had back in the early 90s, and that's saying something.
That sounds so long ago. My gosh.
Yeah, but every time I say it, all I can think about is that 5 of Indiana's all-time top three-point shooters, or 5 of the top 11 all-time three-point shooters, were on the same stinking roster. That's I don't think there's a school in the country that could say that. That's astonishing to me.
We weren't the most athletic team, so we had to figure out a different way to score.
Well, you certainly did, but that was incredible, and I don't mean this how it's going to sound, but it's also not great that Indiana has not had some guys move some of the guys out, and I don't mean that you and some of the other guys weren't great. It's just you need to have. The record book should continue to be challenged. It should be challenged, and it hasn't really been challenged there, and it shows how shooting has gone away for Indiana.
Well, from that regard, you are 100% right because of the way the game has changed. The game has changed into an analytical era where shooting three-pointers should become a lot more of a factor in your offense. And, Indiana, for whatever reason, has been one of the teams kind of fighting that trend and holding on to the old regime kind of longer than most other schools. But I mean, every team's going to get forced into, playing a different style, playing a little more up-tempo, shoot from the outside style before it's all over with. So yeah, those records they'll all get smashed eventually.
And that's something that the program in its current state has definitely not been a team that takes advantage of the 3-point shot, and it's hurt them. I mean, if you look at any of the successful teams in the NCAA tournament, they could all shoot the ball. It doesn't mean that they're successful every night in doing so, but you have to have the ability to be pretty good at it. And Indiana has not had that ability to be good at it.
Yeah. And it's got to be a big part of your game plan. It's got to be going into it, knowing that that's something you're trying to accomplish. And you're right. There's going to be nights that you don't shoot well. But I mean, look at it, for example, look at the teams in the Final Four. And you've got Alabama, obviously it's their biggest issue. UConn shoots a tremendous amount of three-pointers. Purdue shoots a tremendous amount of three-pointers. The one team that really
they're the number one team in the country.
Right. And the team that doesn't rely that much on three-pointers was North Carolina State. And they're a team that kind of tries to beat you on the inside. That's why that matchup for them against Edey and Purdue was such a bad matchup for them, because their strength was also what Purdue has the best guy in the country at. And so that was a just unfortunate scenario for them. But, you give credit to Purdue and how they're built and what they are. They not only have the biggest guy on the inside, they also, were in the top 5 in the country almost all year long in 3-point makes and or percentage. And so that's a big deal. And I mean, that's the 3-point line, outside shooting is bigger now in college basketball. It's, I saw an interview a couple of years ago with an NBA guy, and his big thing with college basketball was guys are not shot makers. That's what you see, like a Trace Jackson Davis 5 years from now, he'll be a big time shot maker. And you just wonder why that can't develop more in college. And Indiana's going to have to get on board with that. It's not going to change. It's only going to, I think, become more of a big factor in college basketball.
Yeah, and there are some. There's an X factor for Indiana next year, and that is Ja'Kai Newton. We've heard about him, seen him. Don't know what he's going to add to this team. I don't know that if he's a 3-point shooter as far as volume. I know he looks like a hell of an athlete.
Yeah, no, he's. I mean, none of us know. Like I've been to practices last year. He obviously didn't practice because of the injury. He's always just been on the sideline. So honestly, I don't know. He was also one of the guys that came into Indiana not as highly recruited, so we didn't know a ton about him. I think we were all, didn't really know what to expect from him. But yeah, it's definitely an intriguing piece of what they have, and we're all excited to see what he can bring in that. But I mean, let's point out the obvious today. Like the number, if the reports are true and John Calipari does go to Arkansas, are we not all knocking on Boogie Flan's door again? Like those recruits most likely will not all stay committed to Kentucky. So watching Boogie Flan in that McDonald's All-American game, I changed my opinion of how important I think he could be. And yeah, let's go get that. Well,
there's no doubt. I mean, Indiana has to have an A-level point guard, period, without question. They have to have an A- point guard to back him up. I don't see. I've people say, well, Trey Galloway, he could play it, and he did it successfully. I don't know that that's who this team needs to be the point guard, but I'm not the coach, and you've seen him practice a lot more, but I still think that they need more athleticism and guys that could beat guys off the dribble, that they could get to the rim because of beating defenders or putting defenders in a situation with their speed. I don't know that that's Trey. Trey plays very smartly and intelligently, but again, you know better than I do.
Well, I'll say it this way: like I don't think it's either get an elite point guard or bust. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but I do think it has to be one of the two things. Of your point guard either has to be the guy with the ball in his hands has to be able to score in different levels. He has to be able to score at the rim by getting by his guy, but he also has to be able to make shots. If you don't have a guy that does that, then he needs to be a true facilitator. And that's where I think a guy like Gabe Cupps could be. He could be your point guard for sure if you have him surrounded with weapons everywhere. So if you've got him with shooters on both wings and even a guy from the inside that can step out and make shots, Gabe Cupps is capable of making shots. But I think we all understand at this point in his career, he's not going to be a guy that goes out and gets you 15 to 20 points every night. And I don't know that we can consistently rely on him to score, but you can use a guy like that as a facilitator if every other person on the floor is a weapon. And it becomes that's the area Indiana doesn't have right now. So that's where we're all saying, yes, you do have to have a point guard with more athletic ability and skills and strength and speed and can get to the rim and can facilitate for other guys or create for other guys. And that's what Indiana doesn't have right now. That's what we don't know. Could Ja'Kai Newton be that? I don't know. But I certainly hope we're not at the point next year of having to have Trey Galloway fill in at point guard, because although he's capable in the half court of kind of facilitating the offense, I hope that's just another option that we have, and that's not our main option, because that Indiana's not at its best when that's what it's running.
Yeah, and they have to get the players that they need. Shooting, of course, probably. I don't know if that's. I hate to call it a problem, but option.
Oh, it's a problem. It's a problem.
It was definitely a problem, but problem solver, number one, is shooting, but point guard is right there. So, but you also still have to have shooting. You've got Mackenzie Mbako, who after 3/4 of the season found his groove and became the player that I think Indiana fans and a lot of us thought he was going to be right from the get-go, which was probably not fair. But he got there, and so people will expect that to start at that point and maybe even get better. But they need someone else that can do the same thing to take the focus off of him, because if he does continue to rise up, he's going to draw more attention, and they need other guys that can do the same to pull the attention away from them and basically make life troublesome for the other teams' defenses.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at being able to put someone opposite of Mbako, it makes Mbako better. It'll make Malik Renew better. It'll make the point guard's job a lot easier. Filling that spot is a big deal. That's why the Liam McNeely thing hurt so bad. I mean, can Tucker come in and be that guy? I mean, he stepped in and knocked down a 3-pointer to start the game out in the McDonald's All-American game. So, I mean, he's capable of it. I'm not sure it's necessarily his biggest strength, but I could be wrong. I haven't seen enough of him to really know. But yeah, the transfer portal needs to shore some things up for Indiana from the scoring position, and whether that's a forward or whether that's a guard, they really have got to win the transfer portal battle here and come up with somebody that's big time.
Yeah, and not just that, they also have to fill in the big man spot that Kalel Ware will be vacating. I don't see that being Mackenzie or Malik Renew. I still see him as a 4. He could play the 5, especially with the fact that he could step out. But he's going to have somebody else until he proves that he is not going to get into foul trouble.
Yeah, and agree with what you're saying, except for I think what we talked about earlier in the new analytical way of college basketball, where it's faster and shooting more from the outside. Finding a good 5-man, we got something we didn't realize how good we had when we got Kalel Ware last year. Probably not going to find another one of those guys for a while. And I don't necessarily think it's that big of a want right now, because I don't want Indiana to come down the floor and slow everything down so that they can wait on the big guy to get down the floor. And that's honestly, that's one of the differences. Edey obviously makes up for it. Edey for Purdue is a guy that you slow things down, because when he comes down the floor, he's going to get you a bucket most likely. But that's one of one. I mean, there's no one else in college basketball that I think you really do that for. And Indiana slowed their pace down last year so that they could run more half-court offense. And I don't want to go back to that style of basketball. I hope that they don't get a big guy, and I hope that we do play with. Now we need some size to play on the interior and be able to defend opposing post players. But I don't want a big that, we're waiting on to get down the court so we can run half-court offense and pound the ball inside. I don't think Indiana's offense is at its best. I don't think Indiana basketball is at its best when we're running an offense where we're trying to wait for 2 big guys to get down the floor, and we have an actual 4 guy and a 5 guy. Malik can score plenty on the inside. And so I don't care about that position near as much as you're going to make everyone better if you fill the court with shooters, as opposed to trying to go win the war across the country of who's the best big guy in the portal.
Yeah, and the scary thing is when Mike Woodson made the comment that I still believe that college basketball runs through the middle. That's not what you want to hear, because that is saying that he has no intentions on changing his offense, but we'll see, because the players dictate that. Your personnel will dictate that. And if you don't have if you don't have shooters, you don't have shooting. They haven't had shooting.
Well,
they've had big men. They've had successful big men, but that has not served them well enough.
Last year's roster, I would 100% agree with him. I would say like that team's best chance of scoring was definitely going through either your 4-man or your 5-man. And it's almost like, yeah, I kind of want to force his hand a little bit and not let him have another big guy in there and make Malik, kind of be the guy that is, if not the biggest guy on the floor, he's playing your inside scorer position, and you don't have another one. Because when Indiana has two of them, they're going to play that slow down, pounded inside basketball. And I think you can see, based on what you're seeing in, this year's NCAA tournament, not just the Final Four, but the whole tournament, shooters are going to dictate who gets you to the promised land here. And, that Purdue's whole thing right now tonight, I think every analyst would agree with this. Purdue's not going to win this game by coming down the floor and pounding it into Zach Edey every single time and him having 40. They're going to win this game by the supporting cast of all of those other guys making shots and being able to make it so that they can't clog up the interior. And I think that's the strategy you'll see UConn go with tonight is, kind of guard Edey one-on-one. They've got a 7'2" guy also. So, I mean, they've got a gigantic guy also. Edey hasn't played against someone like Klingon all year long. Klingon obviously hasn't played against someone like Edey all year long. But I think you'll see them try to force the supporting cast to win the game for Purdue. And if those guys make shots, they're as good as anybody in the country. But if they don't, they're going to get exposed.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because Klingon and Edey are both big men, but they are very, very different. Klingon is a very active, somewhat like Trace Jackson Davis, but better. Just he's taller. He's pretty damn athletic for a 7'2" guy, and he's got a wingspan. He's an eraser. A shot will go up and all of a sudden it just disappears. But it's going to be a different task taking on Mount Edey. We'll see about that. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever is happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.